Subscribe to Simply
Not yet.
Bitcoin.
All right. Welcome, everybody. Welcome in to another episode of the Meme Factory podcast. This is test stream number 34. And as anybody who watches regularly knows, we will never have anything other than a test stream. As long as we're doing test streams, we can't be canceled. It's all mistakes. Now, this evening, we are graced by the likes of Saifedean Ammous. Some of you may recognize him. He puts out some content from time to time that's Bitcoin related, but I don't want to butcher it. Saif, could you go ahead and tell people who you are?
My name is Saifedean, and I wrote the Bitcoin standard and the Fiat standard. And I'm on Twitter at Saifedean, and I spend most of my time shitposting about Bitcoin, basically, and eating steak.
Our people.
Yeah, it's pretty much why I think everybody in this Zoom call likes you. It's the shit posting. Works out very well.
And the cookery tips.
The cuckery tips, yep.
I just want to say welcome in the space, and you're a welcoming, refreshing tone.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
All right, so this is the part of the show where we really make our money. Okay, so we secure sponsors. We have one sponsor, Simply Bitcoin, and they let us roll the ad ahead of time. The other sponsors we get, we're able to secure them by telling them that we have high-profile guests that will actually read the ad for them. Now, this week, it's a little bit different because you're the sponsor, and you demanded that you yourself read this. So, at your convenience, you can go ahead with that ad copy, and then we'll continue from there.
Hi, I'm Saifedean Ammous, and this episode of the Meme Factory podcast is brought to you by me and my new cookbook, the Seed Oil Standard. Proof of work is missing in the kitchens and dining rooms across America, and I am to fix that by putting a new spin on some of my favorite traditional Lebanese dishes by making them vegan and highlighting the use of a particular seed oil in each recipe. Is inflation showing up in your food bills but not on the scale? Do you hate thinking about where your calories come from? Have you ever thought about turning low-grade industrial waste into food? If you have had any thoughts like this, then my book is for you. My readers will get their hands on kibbeh made with Beyond Meat and canola oil. You can pop this in your mouth raw, and it is 100% vegan. My recipe for Beyond Meat, hashwe, and vegan egg substitute was recently featured in an op-ed piece published in Men's Health by Nassim Taleb, who raved about the inclusion of Crisco as the cooking medium and signature seed oil, but couldn't describe how the dish actually tasted. Now, if it's the taste you're really going after, there's nothing in the world like my rapeseed grape leaves. I've taken the traditional grape leaf recipe and replaced all of the ingredients people steal from the natural world with reliably sourced rapeseed oil. The rice has been replaced with rapeseed oil, and the beef has been replaced with rapeseed oil as well. Come on over to Saifedean.com and pick up your copy of the Seed Oil Standard today, and pack that PUFA in your FUPA.
You made
You
it.
get paid now. Thank you.
Well, we get paid now
Brilliant.
from Safe. So
Yes.
when you're ready, just hit us with that Bitcoin transaction. We'll
2 sets.
All right, so one of the things I enjoyed about writing that was Nassim Taleb. And we have a long tradition here in Bitcoin of killing our heroes. So I imagine, and for anybody who hasn't read Safe's book, A, read it, idiot. B, it used to come with a foreword by Nassim Taleb. But something happened where it became evident that maybe he didn't even read the book. Could you expand on that a little bit for us? Or is that...
Yeah, no, he never read the book, and he has absolutely no idea what Bitcoin is and how Bitcoin works. And he just thought Bitcoin sounded interesting. A lot of people would tell him about Bitcoin, but he really never took the time to think about it in depth. And I think this is this is a symptom of his larger approach to life. It's much more about sounding smart than actually understanding things, which is why, he's essentially the equivalent of a pump and dump telegram group operator, just the Fiat version. He's always talking about his calls after they happen. He never says what he's invested in ahead of time. And he's just waiting for these moonshots to land occasionally so that he could then go milk them for 10 years of selling books. No, he didn't read the book, and this became embarrassingly obvious. The problem was that he had told the publisher about the book. He had mentioned this to a friend of his at Wiley, and so Wiley wanted to publish it. And they wanted a foreword from him, and he didn't want to read the book, so he just handed in something in the last minute. He half-assed something, and he really, it showed that he didn't really understand what Bitcoin was all about. If you read it, you get it. Like, okay, this guy clearly doesn't get it, and he just tried to half-ass something in a few hours, a few minutes maybe. And but it was too late to do anything about it, so we just handed it in to the publisher, and the publisher went and published it. And then COVID happened, and this guy lost his mind, as obviously happens. It's almost at the point where you can't even talk about it or laugh at it because it's almost sad. Almost, not quite yet.
Almost.
So we can still laugh at it, I think. But yeah, he's also got a serious seed oil problem, and he's addicted to industrial food, and he's found all these ways to rationalize his addiction for industrial food by referring to all kinds of obscure dietary habits from across the Mediterranean. That just you find some starving peasant somewhere that ate something. And then you base your diet over consuming 3 pounds of it every meal.
So he
like
could
pasta,
forward
for
the
instance.
seed oil standard.
Exactly. And he'd actually know about the subject matter.
You can't really argue with his figure.
No, exactly. The results speak for themselves. So he's clearly onto something. This was really the first time that I really started to suspect this guy's full of shit. It was when my wife met him for the first time, and she just looked at me and said, "What is wrong with you? Why do you find this guy interesting? He's just another loudmouth." And she's lived almost all of her life in Lebanon, so she knows Lebanese people, and she was like, "It's just another Lebanese loudmouth, like any taxi driver." And she kind of had a point. Like, the guy was just going on and on and on and on about what he's learned about diet from studying the Romans and studying Mediterranean history and studying all these languages. He's got all this incredible insight about diet, but he just eats the same industrial waste that everybody else eats. And it's the same thing with his thinking about statistics and math and his understanding of epidemiology. He's got all these very complex ideas, but ultimately it all goes back to just whatever CNN says is gospel, and we just repeat it. So yeah, glad to be done with him and removed him from the reprint of the Bitcoin Standard, and he's been replaced by none other than Michael Saylor. So that's a huge upgrade there.
And how is your trade going on that front?
That trade is going very well. Nassim Taleb made up with Sam Harris over COVID because Sam Harris was a fellow hysteric, and so they both found themselves in hysteria together. And so he dumped me and got Sam Harris, and I got Michael Saylor. So
That's great.
Nice.
Hell of an
you
upgrade.
can have fun staying with Sam Harris.
Nice trade.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we just hit the 4-year mark that the Bitcoin Standard was published, so that's awesome. So how does it feel to reflect back on writing one of the most influential, sorry, I can't speak English, books in Bitcoin?
It's nice. 4 years on, I think it's held up pretty well. People still seem to like it. It's selling continuously better than it used to sell. So I think in the last year, it had 4 separate months that were the highest of all time. It just kept selling higher and higher, 4 times during the year, and I think this year as well, perhaps. So interest keeps going up, and number go up, and the main thesis of the book can be summarized as number go up, and basically the whole thing rests on number go up. So like I'm kind of even more invested in the Bitcoin price number than just Bitcoin financially. It's like the whole thesis of the book. If number doesn't go up, then we're in trouble. But number has gone up. So when I wrote the book, it was at 7,000 something, and now we're comfortably five-fold that, six-fold that. So in 4 years' time, number has continued to go up, which was a pretty ballsy thing to say, after 8 years of number go up, to say that, yep, there's going to be more number go up.
One could say you put skin in the game.
I know. If only somebody could write a book about it who could actually understand the concept and what it means, but
it would be funny to see if we can like make a tweet with your sales of the Bitcoin standard and the BTC price, like how that those two correlate.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
I
think it's like a moving average for sure.
Yeah, I think the BTC price is a leading indicator. I think like the sales of the book jump up after the price jumps up. I've taken a preliminary look at the data. This is kind of how it usually goes. Number goes up, and then people start Googling Bitcoin, and then they find the book. And
I guess
2 weeks later, they're shitposting on Twitter.
Your sales halving must be the Thanksgiving, where everybody's like gifting that book all over the place.
Yeah, between 2020 and 2021, I gave out 10 of your books to military members who I thought were primed for Bitcoin.
Oh, nice.
Chair Force signed all of them too.
I did.
What years were they?
2020, 2021.
Between 2020 and 2020, how many did you give out?
10.
I gave out 20 copies of your book. All right, so to keep a more serious tone, I know you're racking up your wins against everybody that's a detractor. Everybody that's been a detractor against number go up. Everybody that's been rooting for Saifedean go unemployed. But I know we want to keep track of the score here, and so I'm tuning into Labrahana real quick to give us an update.
Yeah, so scores. Saifedean has 21 points. Pedro has a guitar. Marcus has a diaper. And Sean still has 0 points.
Excellent. All right, guys, keep up the good
Everything
work.
is basketball.
We'll make sure that we have some winner by the end of this. It's not going to be anybody
and
watching,
Chair Force,
but it'll be somebody.
Chair Force, please stop with that ball. You know I'm a dog, so please stop it.
Now, Saif, you recently had one of the princes, I think, of Serbia on the show. And you two talked about something a little controversial. I don't know how much of that was planning to make an interesting episode, or that was your real thoughts on monarchies versus democracies.
No, that's really me. I mean, you know me, I don't have time to put up pretenses. That's genuinely what I think. I think monarchies do a better job of protecting property rights in the long run. And democracies sound better in theory, and they appeal to our egalitarian sense. They appeal to our sense of fairness. But in practice, it just means every 4 years you get a new king, and that king only has 4 years to secure himself and his progeny forever. And during those 4 years, he's going to try and make the most out of you. And because he's only there for 4 years, or 10 or 15 or whatever, but then he's got to leave, and he has no way of reliably transferring power to his child. On the other hand, if you have a king, well, you just get one family line that's in power for generations, and it's in their interest that they not make the most out of you every 4 years, because they want to make you healthy, wealthy, and prosperous in the long term, so that 100 years from now, your descendants are there, healthy, wealthy, and prosperous, and paying taxes for their descendants. So you both have the same interest. You both care about the well-being of your long-term descendants. So if that's what you care about, you'd rather the job of king be handled by a multi-generational business than basically a quadrennial smash and grab, where every 4 years you get a new guy who's there to try and grab as much as he can for him and his friends and allies and family as quickly as possible, and then he leaves, and then there's another guy, and he's trying to make the most. And each one of these, they like one guy comes in and he gives his family, say, a monopoly over some sort of industry. They are stuck with that industry for decades and generations, probably. And then the new president comes in and he's doing all of that again, and so you get another industry. And so with democracy, you're constantly prioritizing the short term over the long term. But monarchies can think long term. And this is where I think this is relevant and interesting to Bitcoiners, because Bitcoin is going to reward people who think long term, and it's going to punish high time preference people who think short term. So democracies are just going to continue to vote for fiat, and they're going to continue to vote for more free money and bullshit, and they're going to continue to harvest bankruptcy and inflation and currency failure. Whereas natural monarchs are just going to be stacking sats, and eventually people are going to realize, I think, more and more. I mean, people who live in monarchies understand this, but democratic propaganda makes this such a controversial idea. Nobody likes to talk about it. But really, you look around the world, you see so many examples of monarchies next to republics, and you see peace and stability on the one hand, and then chaos and war and murder and despotism on the other hand. Well, obviously nicer slogans, but all kinds of horrific stuff as well.
Now, you didn't get any pushback on the prince from this, and I can't imagine why. But I'm going to give you two arguments that I'd like for you to eviscerate for me, because I'm sure you're well-versed here. Now, my argument number one is, have you seen the royal family in England?
Yeah, I think they're done. Honestly, I don't mean, being royal families and pro-monarchy doesn't mean you're pro every single royal family out there in the world. I think the British family need to just retire.
I'm saying
they've done enough, I think, and you look at the rest of the family, and it's not happening for them.
Yeah.
They need to give up.
So, I mean, I think
monarchy
leads to, inbreeding, right?
Not necessarily, no.
Not necessarily, but usually.
So is your argument more of like a reflection of where the clown world and the so-called democracy has, in the end, ended up for all of us? Like, it's a failure of democracy in the end, right? And that's why even monarchy now sounds and looks better, right?
Yeah. I think the first person to get these heretic ideas in my mind was Hans Hermann Hoppe, the Austrian economist, and he wrote a book called Democracy, the God That Failed. And in the first chapter is on democracy, monarchy, and time preference. And Hoppe is not a monarchist, he's an anarchist, and he doesn't defend monarchy, but that chapter still made me a monarchist. I mean, I'm still an anarchist primarily, but given the choice, I think generally I don't know, I see the case for monarchies much more, and I think I would trust more a monarchy than a republic in the long term.
See, now my framework for a republic versus a monarchy, I could be wrong, but I think of it more like, instead of trusting in people, in a republic, I can trust the base layer program, at least insofar as the people utilizing it can't fuck it up. But I mean, the Constitution of the United States and the Bill of Rights.
There it is.
Pretty good things.
Yeah, again, all of these things sound great in theory, but then in practice you just end up with a bunch of unaccountable bureaucrats who get to interpret this stuff as they want and do as they please. And the problem is, again, they're all high time preference. They've all got a few years in power where they managed to make it to these very powerful positions, and they're going to make the most out of it. And only the people who make the most out of it get to the top, and you're stuck dealing with all of those people along the way. On the other hand, ideally, for me, nobody should have coercive power. And I think the reason that I like monarchy is that smart monarchs accept and understand this. Like, if you find a monarchy that has survived for more than 4 or 5 generations, They've only managed to do that because they've clearly taught themselves, across generations, some degree of economic freedom. You couldn't have done that if you were completely socialist in your economic direction. There's always some degree of respecting property right. And that's what allows a kingdom to survive. And so kings understand this. So whereas you might think, in theory, all right, we have all these nice laws and constitutions and legislations that have been written that ensure this, you're still going to be ending up with a person who's going to be in charge at some point and who can enact coercive authority. I think we shouldn't have coercive authority. And I think monarchy does much better of limiting the coercive authority of the king, because smart kings realize that you try the best that you can not to accumulate needless enemies. This is like really the smart thing to do to become a king. Don't aggravate people that you don't want to aggravate, because you don't want to make them angry and then their kids become angry, and then you have generations to worry about this. So they only use their ability their force usually for punishing criminals, not for enforcing behavior on others, and not on being despots, and not on trying to mandate how people behave. They let people be. So I think you're more likely to live freely under a monarch than a republic, I would argue. I think, in fact, if you look in the 20th century, you see, for instance, inflation was regularly higher in republics than in monarchies. I think there's a very good reason for that. Monarchies have a king, and the king cares about the currency, and he doesn't let the central bank get in the hands of inflationist cranks. In the republic, the inflationists manage to find their way to the printing press, always.
Counter argument, that Monty Python's bit, where he goes like, "I'm your king."
Right.
Yeah, I mean, look, historically, if you find a dynasty that has been around for generations, there must be a reason why people stuck around it for generations. And then you see usually there is something, like at some point they led, the way that kings were born is that you led people in battle, and then if you won, you got more people to support you, and then
there's a proof of work there.
Yep.
Exactly. You didn't have to win a stupid popularity contest where you lie and
you can't fake it.
Makeup and tell people you're going to buy them free shit with their money.
Mail-in ballots.
Yeah. None of that nonsense. If you manage to find yourself in a job in that line of business, you've had generations before you that have been in this line of business, and if you got it, then by most likely they've managed to hand down some teachings about respect people's property rights.
All right, now I want to keep it serious, so I want to talk about some of the things that your critics have said about you. You've been called I've heard you've been called a boring bastard. I've heard you've been called Lebanese or Scrooge. I just want to know what you have to say to some of your detractors, if you were given.
You're talking to Saifedean.
Do you think you are Lebanese or Scrooge?
A Lebanese what?
Lebanese or Scrooge, like Ebenezer, but Lebanese.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, well, I'm not even Lebanese. Generally, I don't really care about what the detractors say. They can cry harder. There's 7.5 billion people on the world. I'm not going to sell them my books, all of them. They're not all going to listen to my podcast. I'm very happy, accepting the fact that some never will. And, they can cry harder.
Say it.
Say it.
I'm going to keep it also in a serious note, and I'm going to ask you, between your bots, reply bots, and Sailor's reply bots, who would win, you think?
I think Sailors,
huh?
Yeah, I presume he's got a much bigger operation around
those bots know like to seal that Telegram group.
Which Telegram? Which Telegram group are you talking?
I never clicked.
I've got a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Chair Force. So talking about bots and stuff, you're on Twitter shit posting, which is amazing. I noticed you have a lot of arguments with parody accounts, and I just want to know the percentage of your arguments with parody accounts, and if you end up realizing they're parody accounts, or if you just move on to the next argument.
I think this was just happening with one guy, and it was just recently. No, I knew it was he was pretending to be a Ripple fan, but I thought it was a useful question, a teachable. But yeah, I knew it was a parody account, but it doesn't happen often. No.
Okay, no, it's fairly amusing.
I don't know anything about this event. What was the question? What was the parody account saying?
Ripple saves on electricity.
Oh,
yeah, it's an electrical question. Yeah.
God. So on the electricity thing, that's definitely an ESG attack.
Mm-hmm.
How do we fight back against these assholes? I've been using ridicule. What have you been using?
Yeah, ridicule and the continuous reminder to cry harder. I think so. There is two ways to go about this, and a lot of people think you want to be diplomatic and you want to talk about renewable mining and Bitcoin is going to help wind and solar and all of that stuff. And to each his own, but that doesn't fly with me because I prefer truth and honesty. And B, I think truth and honesty is also the most successful strategy. And I think what we're up against is just an insane worldview, which needs to be punctured whole. We can't accept this ridiculous premises and then argue with them on the details. So the problem with trying to say that, oh, well, but Bitcoin runs on green and renewable energy, and we're going to help incentivize the development of green energy, is that you're arguing with an entirely ridiculous, made-up bullshit pseudoscience whose entire point is political control. It's not about the fucking carbon dioxide. It's really not. There is no climate crisis. If the world really was in a crisis, we'd have found out some way other than just all the same hysterical people that watch a lot of CNN being constantly freaking out. So it is about politics. It's designed in order to arrive at the conclusion that things that essentially fiat authorities don't want are bad, and things that fiat authority want to reward are good. And so you can't win that argument against them on their premises. You can't go on their media, which is essentially not arguing in good faith. And this is really, it's become clear for anybody who's not insane over the last couple of years over COVID. Like, it's clear that they're not out there looking to arrive at the best answer. They're not out there trying to figure out what is best for you and for your life and for your kids. They're out there with an agenda. They want to make things happen in a certain way. And this is true for universities and newspapers and all organs of the fiat monster. And the entire agenda, the entire purpose of it is to arrive at the conclusions that they want. So you're up shit creek without a paddle if you're thinking that we're going to prove to them that we are good by their standards. That's really the problem with it. And so,
is it then that is it those people who are promoting this that are really the people that they're trying to convince, though? Because I'm completely with you, 100% agree with what you've just said, and I see it as a scam. I see it as a complete narrative that they're using to drive through, the next long cycle. Let's call it that, right? Popular way of putting it. But the thing that kind of makes me just pause is that there is a really good story to tell for Bitcoin. It's not like we're just saying cry harder, we don't give a shit, right? Have fun staying poor. Bitcoin's going to win anyway. Honey Badger doesn't give a fuck, etc., etc. It's that there is actually a really positive story, and Bitcoin seems to be driving a bus through the ESG scam narrative put out by the likes of the WEF and the Larry Finks of this world, etc. Right? It's actually a profoundly positive story if you look at it in their world,
Yes, but the way that it is profound is that it is falsifying the entire idea at its basis. It's not accepting it and saying, "Oh no, look, we're going to score good on the ESG metrics," because the ESG metrics is designed to arrive at these shitty answers. I think where it's really making a dent in their narrative is that it's really forcing people to confront what I think is this is the angle of attack that I like to take in my discussion of this.
Yeah.
It's forcing people to confront the central issue that they need to ask themselves and to stop wanking around with ridiculous virtue signaling. Is energy use good or no? Is it good for you or no? And you need to ask this question in a meaningful sense of you and your own energy use, because a lot of people wank about this question, and I mean wank not just as a joke. It's truly wanking because they just think about it in a completely useless, worthless way. In that, I'd like for my energy use to go down by 90%, and I'd like it to all be on wind and solar. And sure, it's just as completely as ridiculous as wanting a time machine at this point. If you like to have the things that make your modern life possible, if you like having an internet-connected device at home, if you like having electricity, if you like having hot running water, if you like having a functioning sewage system, you need to consume a lot of energy. A lot of energy goes into building those things, into operating them, and to making sure that they're functioning. If you like to have your premature born baby get an incubator machine that has 24-hour electricity so that the kid won't die, you need 24-hour reliable electricity. You need giant power plants that can deliver this at large scale at low cost. There's no alternative to this. We can keep wanking about what we'd like to see because we think CO2 in the atmosphere is rising too much, and CNN says that's a bad thing because the science says that's a bad thing. Or you can think realistically, what does it mean to actually drop down your CO2 emissions by 90%, or down to zero, as people really think? Like, how can you actually live like that? Try and think of it as an engineer responsible for your own life, and try and do it. Billionaires themselves can't do it. Bill Gates has all the resources in the world, and he can't live his own life with zero carbon. He's got to take his jets, and he's got to use his electric devices that are made using highly intensive industrial processes that require shit tons of energy, and yet he keeps using them. He keeps doing this. He keeps making money out of it. So what kind of crisis is this if those people won't give this up? And maybe we really should redefine where the crisis really is here, because the crisis is that those people are, because of this fucking retarded, moronic idea they have, they want to take away basically industrial civilization. I mean, it's just, they want to take away from us our ability to survive winter comfortably. They want to take away from us our ability to travel around the world using the full extent of the technologies and the machine that we've developed in the 19th and 20th century. They want to take that away and bring us back to living like mid 13th century peasants, relying on wind energy in order to do our daily chores, unable to move around, eating bug soy, all of it essentially to fight inflation. So what Bitcoin is forcing, to go back to your original question, what Bitcoin is forcing us back to asking this question: is it good to spend energy or not? Is it good to spend energy on meeting your own needs? And the answer that Bitcoin is providing to people, because it just gives people number go up, so they have to confront this question very powerfully and very vividly, is, yeah, you know what? I'm willing to fucking spend electricity in order for number to go up. Yeah, you know what? I personally, I was living in Lebanon and we had hyperinflation, and it's because I spent all of that money on Bitcoin electricity that I managed to get out of hyperinflation and not get ruined financially. Was that worth the electricity that I spent on it? Hell yeah. If you think about it as an appliance that I had in my home running, instead of the distributed network, if I had all of these machines, my share of the machines running in my house in order to buy the Bitcoin at the time that I bought it, it would have probably consumed more than my washing machine. Was it worth it? Yes, it was. Was my washing machine worth it? Yes, it was. What are you going to do about it? The idea is we need energy in order to make our laundry happen and get done quickly. We need it to travel quickly. We need it to make our money work quickly. We need it to make everything better. And we need to come to terms with that. And we need to understand the true extent of that, because without that, we truly go back to a very, very, very ugly future, which is like the pre-industrial past, where we don't expect to live past 40, and most of us die before 30 even. We don't want that. We want to have sewage and modern wastewater treatment, and we want to have pumps, and we want to have the technology and the electricity that makes all of this shit possible. And for that, we need abundant and cheap energy. And that's what Bitcoin is doing. Bitcoin is pushing abundant, cheap energy around the world. And it's showing us that the answer that the world really needs is more energy. The real crisis is people taking away from us energy. The real crisis is all the poor people in the world that aren't able to have 24-hour electricity because their stupid fucking ministry of whatever planning bullshit is beholden to the World Bank and all of these insane bureaucracies that believe in this insane bullshit about getting all of these pre-industrial societies to move to a fourth industrial revolution at one hop, where they're going to use technologies that are not even economic to use in the developed world. Solar and wind and all of that bullshit. It can't be used for more than 10-15% of the grid capacity, even in the best of days, and usually it's added to grid capacity. They want to build the entire grid of all of these countries based on these insane technologies. That's what Bitcoin is really up against. That's where I think we have the good story, and I think it's more than just Bitcoin. Bitcoin's war to win. It's going to force a reckoning for this entire lie, and I think it's time for this stupid lie to come to light. I think it's time for people to just speak up. It's time for smart people to stop virtue signaling about the fact that they accept the science. There is no fucking science behind it. It's all a load of bullshit. It's all about control. It's just a bunch of fucking actors.
This isn't hype on your behalf. It's been talked about for years now about moving to a post-industrial era. You have these sustainable development goals that started off with the Agenda 21 plan that began at the Rio Summit in 1990. It's now morphed into the SDGs for 2030, right? They're kind of behind schedule. But everything that you're saying is effectively on record. Maybe not quite as eloquently as you put it. It's much more subtle than that, but that's exactly where things are being taken. So, all right, you've got me wondering then, do people really know? And is there too much of an educational issue to cross there, like a chasm, in getting people to realize that energy use is good? And actually, should we just be boiling this up to a more simplistic view of what it's going to be like if you just don't have any money? Because that's really, if you want to look at it from a Michael Saylor point of view, right? Money is energy, Bitcoin's energy, and I think people can probably grok having no money more easily than having no energy in these virtue signaling times of people wanting to be more sustainable, in inverted commas.
Yeah, but the onus of proof here is, the reality is that Bitcoin consumes a shit ton of energy. There's no way around it. It's around possibly, something in the range of 0.1% of total global consumption. So 1 out of 1,000, which is just enormous. There's no way around it. It does consume a lot of energy, and it consumes a lot of energy compared to the alternatives. So when you say to people that the world without money, well, no, we can have a world with money without Bitcoin. Is it really worth it? I mean, we could have government money, which seems to be working fine for most rich people, at least in rich countries. It's all right. We can have gold. We can do silver. We could, most people think we can do money out of anything. They think copper can be money. They believe stupid Marxist ideas about money being an illusion, and they think that we could just collectively hallucinate anything into money. There's no need to collectively hallucinate your very, very expensive, environmentally harmful, silly hallucination that is Bitcoin. Why should we do that? The only way to answer that is to show them why it is fucking worth it. And it is fucking worth it because it has number go up technology, whereas all other forms of money have number go down technology. All other forms of money lose value compared to all the things that you want in life. And all other forms of money are crappy as saving mechanisms. You can't save in gold. Gold doesn't keep up with inflation. The dollar doesn't keep its own value over time. Everything loses value over time. There is no money in the world. There is no other way of making money whose value goes up except to take the humans out of it and to make it run on electricity. It's automation, it's industrialization, it's more reliable. It runs on electricity. It consumes a shit ton of electricity because it is fucking worth it. Because it's already saved many people's lives. Many people escaped hyperinflation because of Bitcoin. Many people escaped capital controls and all kinds of insane shit because it fucking works. And this is why, the correct answer is cry harder. And it's the correct answer because this is really what people like this need to be doing. They need to just sit and cry and cry and cry and reach what Eckhart Tolle calls the dark night of the soul, when your worldview dies and you come to the realization that there's something very wrong, and then you wake up the next morning and you make a change in your life and you head away from your past illusions. This is what these people need. So they need to be told to cry harder, because this is what is correct. And it's also good that they must cry harder, because it's it's not like we can stop Bitcoin for them, and it's not like if they cry harder they can stop Bitcoin. So all that they're doing is just providing people who don't think like them cheaper sats for a longer time, and by basically foregoing Satoshis themselves. So it's a very generous gift from them, which I accept by telling them to continue to cry harder, so to allow me to stack more Satoshis. Like, I think it's gracious of me, but it's also like really the only way that you can settle this kind of difference of opinion, because it's not an argument that can be resolved by showing them statistics about how actually Bitcoin is doing this and this and that. It's a fundamentally incompatible worldview, wherein I think human beings matter. I think I'd like to live in a world in which human suffering is alleviated, and in which humans are able to flourish, in which humans are not repressed, humans are not acted against violently against their will, humans are not struggling to meet their needs. My metric for what makes the world good is human flourishing and lack of human suffering. Their metric for what makes the earth good, what makes the world good, is an earth free from human impact. We need to just make sure that they understand that, and that's what needs to be dismantled. Because otherwise, if you don't change that, if you don't take that sick anti-human view, which is the basis of all of this, which is the idea that humans are a burden on Earth, and that the Earth is a paradise that we have ruined by all of the things that we do out of our greed and evil capitalism. If you have that kind of worldview, then, well, yeah, obviously Bitcoin is going to be bad, but also washing machines are bad, and laptops are bad, and everything is bad. And, obviously you can't expect consistency from these people, because they'll happily continue to use their Twitter, because CNN tells them Twitter is fine, and your mobile phone is fine, but they won't like Bitcoin because CNN told them that Bitcoin is not fine. So there is there's no consistency there, and there's just what needs to happen is just the exposition of the idea of understanding that energy use is a good thing, and that Bitcoin is going to consume a lot of energy, and that's a good thing, and that's a very good use of energy. I mean, we are replacing all of the world's central bank with a shit ton of electricity. So be it. Sounds like a fucking bargain. Oh, and it's not up to them individually to decide, because the only thing that they can do is to just not take part in this. And so the people who think that this is a thing that is worthwhile get to buy the Bitcoins, and the people who don't buy the Bitcoin. So I don't see it as an argument that can be settled in any other way. Bet against progress, bet against the sewing machine in favor of hand weaving. See how that works out for you.
Yeah, that's not to say that the Malthusian old money system doesn't use energy. It uses a shit ton of energy. It's hard to calculate, though.
And it wastes a colossal amount of energy.
Mm-hmm. Got to build all those nodes out of concrete.
It steals energy. That's fundamentally the problem, isn't it? That it steals it.
Yeah, and the thing about Bitcoin energy as well is that Bitcoin's difficulty adjustment means that Bitcoin's energy is always cheap. It's only buying cheap energy. Bitcoin doesn't buy electricity for more than 10, 15 cents. It's all of the electricity that gets on the Bitcoin network that can be successful at any appreciable scale for any appreciable amount of time is under 10 cents, and most likely the majority of the serious hash rate is under 5 cents. So it's not out there taking electricity from hungry children. It's out there taking electricity where it is massively abundant and selling it on the spot via satellite connection, via any kind of internet connection to the network. It's not taking energy away from anywhere where energy is expensive. So in most places, the cost of energy is already much higher than what is profitable on the Bitcoin difficulty adjustment. And that's why it's most people don't have any business mining Bitcoin.
I would agree. It's tough. It's not easy mining Bitcoin.
Yeah.
But
it's really not. You have to have really cheap electricity in order to make it work in the long term. And most people in the world don't.
Not just cheap electricity, but one of the things that Bitcoin mining is doing is it's making electricity that's stranded more available. So, I mean, you talk about the countries where you're seeing massive Bitcoin adoption, like El Salvador, Central African Republic. Like El Salvador is using volcanoes. Central African Republic might actually be a great place to install some of that 9th century green technology, solar. But I mean, you've got abundant power in a place where you can't bring it to market. You just bring the market to the power, and I think that's it's going to have a big effect on these economies in their countries.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's going to be enormous. And I think really that's how it's going to that's how it's going to win this war, is by just breaking people's mental model of energy, by showing them how if you want the good stuff, if you want the number go up, you're gonna need to use electricity. If you want to go with the manual shit, if you want to go with the shit that has a Treasury Secretary and a Federal Reserve Chair meeting together to argue about how to get this stuff done, well, yeah, that'll save you on electricity. So good luck with that.
All right, I'd be remiss if I didn't check in with Labrahan to see how we're doing on the score this evening.
Yep. So Safi at 99 points. Becca with 2 sandwich, and Sean -5 points for not being on this podcast.
Boo, Sean.
Makes sense.
All
Makes
right.
sense.
Chair Force, you look like you're gearing up a question for the man here.
Oh, I just was thinking about how Bank of Canada says that Bitcoiners are financially illiterate. Is there any truth to that?
Yes, I thought that was hilarious because it was coming from the Central Bank of Canada, who have, I mean, it's absolutely astonishing. This is a bank that has been selling its gold reserve. They now have something like 13 ounces or something like that. So something in the range of, I can't even remember what it was, 13 ounces or what was it?
An amount that
something
you can lose.
Or 20 grams worth.
13 times 30 grams each, so it'll be something like a half a kilogram of gold left or something like that. That's all that they have left.
Jesus, Becca.
Yeah, that's what they have. And they've been selling their gold since 1970 or so. They had something like 1,000 tons of gold, and now they're down to less than a kilogram, I think, or something in the range of a kilogram, maybe. Who knows? I can't remember the exact number. But they're down from 1,000 tons. So 1,000 tons is 1,000,000 kilograms. They're down from 1,000,000 kilograms to somewhere in the range of approximately 1. And they've done that. They've been selling steadily from 1970 to 2000, or around 2010, I think it was then they were done selling. So they've sold it as gold has gone from $35 an ounce to around $2,000 an ounce. All along, they've just been averaging out of gold, averaging into the US dollar. It's astonishing. Like it's astonishing. Like if you had an investment advisor that got you to do this over this time period, like for 30, 40 years, you were out there just buying dog shit, selling profitable things, selling things that are going up in value, and buying things that are just constantly going down, and not learning the question, and not cutting down, and not ever revising it, and just constantly doing it. Like if you had a financial advisor like that, and they did this to your uncle, your old uncle, like you'd probably sue them and you could win in court. But that's what the Bank of Canada did with the treasure of its country, because, oh well, you guys want to try democracy, right?
They sound like the
you go.
original shitcoiner.
They do.
They really are.
UK, Gordon Brown sold the absolute bottom of the gold market as well back in I think early, when was it? Mid
Early 2000s. Yeah.
Yeah.
He also did an extremely amazing job. Really timed the market very well, and of course he also helped make it the bottom because he announced the purchases to the market. So he told people that they were going to be buying. So people were stocking up to sell him at a low price.
You've not to have a pop at your monarchy comment, because I kind of agree with your argument there, but both the UK and Canada are under the same monarchy, right? What's going on there?
Yeah, I go back to my statement. I don't think
decisions about gold selling.
You have to wait a few minutes for Mike to finish asking the question.
Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, I mean, I think I go back to my idea. I think the British royal family's probably had its. They're ready to abdicate. They should abdicate.
Well, assuming that they are, still the people calling the shots, because as Mayor Amschel Rothschild famously said, "I care not which puppet sits on the throne of England. I care who controls the money, and I control the money."
Yeah, potentially. I'm not sure how true that is or apocryphal, but I don't think the royal family seems to be much in control. I think they are every bit as dysfunctional as they look. And so they're not in control. So I think we should restore the Stuarts in England. And the rightful claimant to the title, to the King of England title at this point.
Is Alan.
No, he is the Duke of Bavaria currently. But when he passes, he's pretty old. His next in line is actually currently the Crown Prince of Liechtenstein. His name is Joseph Wenzel. And I think he should be made King of England and the colonies, including the US.
Right.
And that's going to fix things.
Cool.
Yellow, you had something you wanted to chat about, didn't you?
Yes. No, I didn't.
No,
I did?
No, I don't like animals
either. Shout out to the zoo. That's it.
All right. And Safe, you've been super gracious with your time. We're coming to the end of our hour with you. I want to make sure that you had an opportunity, if you had any questions for the Meme Factory, that you had a chance to ask them, or in absence of that, shill some of your products.
Let me see. What can I ask you guys? Well, I'll ask you to make more memes to support Bitcoin and to shill my products. My products, I've got a new course on the Fiat standard coming up very soon on Saifedean.com, announcing it in the next few days. So you'll sign up. We'll be doing a weekly lecture on one of the chapters of the Fiat standard. And then we'll be having the live seminar discussion, which you could also join to discuss the book. And you can also buy the Fiat standard from my website, Saifedean.com. And you can buy the Bitcoin standard as well. And they're available on Amazon and in many other places on the internet and in MeetSpace. And you can listen to my podcast, the Bitcoin Standard Podcast, talking about all Bitcoin and economics and stake and seed oil related topics, and monarchy and democracy. And it's been fun chatting to you guys. Keep up the great work.
I'm not letting you go yet, because the dog has a question, and then the McDonald's Brit has a question.
All right.
Oh, actually, I was going to say that Artie needs to ask this question.
Okay, let's just go to the McDonald's Brit.
And that I'm the king now.
Oh, okay.
I'm the king now.
You're the king. Yeah.
Artie, you can ask your question now. You can unmute yourself.
Thanks, guys. Hey, Safe.
Hello.
This is the important question of the night.
Knife.
If the meme factory did exist, and we all know it doesn't, who would you like? Who would you retweet? And who would you mute?
Let's see. I mean, I guess the one I retweet the most is RD. I mean, I like all of you guys' work. But who would I would
I do a
mute?
lot of stuff with you in it, Safe. So, you know.
I'm important
Who did
too.
that?
Look at me down here.
Oh my
I'm
God.
British in Australia.
Look at my artwork.
That's you. All right. Well, that's pretty nice actually. Should do some more promotional activity. Makes me look good.
Right.
Yeah, I would like that. But who would I mute? And the question is, I guess Greg, just because everybody picks on him, so it's just gonna go with the safe
default
option.
answer.
Let's go with the safe option.
That's how it works.
Now, who would you kiss? I mean, like.
Said Rusty.
You already
Yeah,
said
said Rusty?
I think I stole.
potato.
Yeah, I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure I stole the like.
All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in
All
this
right, guys.
evening. Safe, thank you for your time. I'm going to
Cheers,
roll this
guys.
here.
Thanks for your time, Safe.
Take
Thanks,
care, guys.
guys.
Thanks, Safe.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Good rant.